small factual correction. Actually, has some 6 individuals associated with CARE have also been associated with terrorism, so I wouldn't let them off that particular hook.
All right, there's a couple of written questions that I think misrepresent Dr. Brooks' proposal. Both of them said, are you really going to destroy every single Islamic country? I think he made it clear that if you destroy Iran, you make it very clear what will happen to the others, and that'll be most likely the end of it. So here's one I think the panel might be interested in. What do you think the role of the UN is, if any, in an organization to fight Islamic terrorism or Islamic totalitarianism?
I'll take that. I don't think it should have any role. I mean, generally, I am a strong believer in shipping the UN to Venezuela. Or as Dr. Sultan suggested, to Damascus, even better. I think from foundation to today, the UN is one of the most immoral institutions ever created. An institution that at its founding had, or maybe a little past its founding, had on one table with equal rights the representative of the United States, the representative of Stalin, and the representative of Mao Zedong, is not an institution that is worthwhile to exist. Today, an institution that has its Human Rights Commission run sometimes by Cuba and sometimes by Syria and sometimes by Libya is not an organization that should exist. If we want an organization of free countries who share a common enemy, in this case Islamic totalitarianism, and who share the values of individualism and respect for individual rights, then let's form such an organization. The United Nations is no such an organization. It is a travesty to individual rights. It is a travesty to freedom. And every time, in my view, that the United States participates in their meetings and their events, we further prove to the world that we have lost our compass and we have lost our way and we don't know what we stand for.
You might say the UN is a violation of the law of contradiction. If you understand what that means. Okay, question.
Yeah, I think that no matter how one feels about Europe and how irresponsible they've been in leading on these issues, if that needle went from the 10% of people that, quote, get it more towards the middle, obviously it would help the cause that we're talking about tonight. What I'm wondering is the card of, obviously the Europe feels a guilt with the Holocaust, with the anti-Holocaust denial legislation. Has there, with your experience with European leaders, do they get this cruel, twisted irony that the people that are benefiting from the anti-xenophobia legacy of the Holocaust are today's Jew haters? And just please share your experience with some European thought leaders, and do they get this? Do they get the reason on these issues?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right that the anti-Holocaust denial legislation, anti-Semitic legislation has been turned against Jews. But I would argue that the Holocaust, the Nazi phenomenon is limited to Germany, Austria, to a lesser extent Italy. And what one finds today in Europe is that even those countries on the other side, notably the British, the French, are suffering from the same symptoms. And therefore, I think it's a mistake to look to World War II as the key base for this problem. I would go back another war, to World War I. World War I had a profound impact on Europeans. Europe changed and never has recovered from World War I. World War I was the war when, say, 750,000 lives were lost to move the trenches a half a mile. The carnage of the war, led to a dismay about the leadership, about the institutions, about the culture, about the values, about the worthiness of being European. And it is only today, really, all these 80, 90 years later, that we are seeing this in full blossom. And the Europeans do not, to a considerable extent, believe that what they have is of value, what Yaron Brook was pointing to earlier. There is this profound multiculturalism that all of our cultures are equally valuable. And why should we bother, why should we stand up for, whether it be on the battlefield or in the classroom, why should we stand up for who we are? And I do believe the origins of that go back nearly a century and have yet to be addressed in any significant way.
If I can just add to that, I think it actually goes back even further than a century, because this is an ideological problem that is killing Europe, and it is an ideological problem that's killing us. The American left is very much like what is going on in Europe today, and the ideological roots of this go back, to the German romantic movement, to Kant and Hegel and so on, and in its modern evolution, what it has brought about is a cynicism, is a subjectivism, it is a questioning of the very existence of the concept of truth. It is a complete surrender of the human mind to whoever is willing to use force to claim it. Europe stands for nothing today. It stands for nothing because it has no ideas, no basis in any kind of ideology that can sustain it. In America, most Americans still believe in the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whether they completely understand what that means or not. They have a certain ideological grounding in a certain American tradition. Europe has explicitly rejected the Enlightenment standing for reason and individual rights and freedom. They have rejected that and have nothing to replace it with other than the complete subjectivism. Then multiculturalism is one aspect of it. Europe is in decline even if you put aside the threat from Islamic totalitarianism.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a written question. Islamic terrorism is economically supported by oil, and at the same time, we ourselves are dependent on their oil. What can we do about this?
In one word, win. As Dr. Sultan said, if the problem is in Saudi Arabia, let's beat the Saudi Arabians. With whatever method, let's have a Saudi Arabian regime that does not use that oil revenue to support terrorism. Iran is the problem. If the Iranian regime was gone, then the money, the funding supplied through oil would not go to terrorism. It would go to building up Iran and to trading with the rest of the world. So the solution to our energy problem is not to lower our standard of living, to deny our need for energy and our need for oil. It's to win this war and get it over with so we can return to the prosperity that we deserve.
One more thing. I believe the only way to solve the oil problem is to find alternative for the oil. That's the only way.
We don't need to find alternatives. We have alternatives. In Brazil, for example, one can go to the gas station and buy at any time and fill up one's tank at any time with petroleum or ethanol. Ethanol is based on products from the ground, sugar cane usually. The problem is that we have big oil, big cars, and big government that are in the way of our using these alternatives that already exist.